eat the bones?
You'll have to ask them.
Yep.
I don't know the answer to that.
Lose your mind.
Ask a walrus.
And look up one.
Ask a mouse.
Look that
A
down.
mouse has them. And they're smaller because, they wouldn't.
Well,
Plastic or
Okay. Well, I don't know where they.
Who's thinking it's the Alaskan word
Made
and it
merge.
specifically means like
So that's.
but that's.
How do you spell penis?
Going up, yes. Going in.
There we go.
So you.
Gross.
Wow, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. Okay, so I brought this up because I wanted to point out that, this was a choice on my part. It was free will. And obviously, if you think about it, this was evil. What did you bring this up for? I thought it would be funny. And it's an interesting argument, too, about the Bible. Rabbis know the curved bone is not a rib. The bone that God used in order to create Eve was the bone that's missing. So there.
I'm not sure if that's like a universal interpretation, because I know, like,
They keep it a secret.
I know, like in the
I
Hebrew,
don't.
I know in the original Hebrew translation, instead of like Adam lives in a rib, the word is translated as half. So Adam's half is taken and formed into Eve. Because in the story of Lilith, I think part of the issue as to why Lilith and Adam didn't get along is that Adam wanted to have kids with Lilith, and Lilith was more focused on the inward. It says when God created Lilith, Lilith and Adam sort of on the spiritual level, again according to sort of the Jewish tradition, were equal. So when she refused, Adam couldn't do anything. So when she rebelled and left, next time God created Eve, it was out of the half of Adam, thus making him lower on the spiritual level. So Eve was subordinate to Adam rather than being equal to Lilith, because then you run into the issue of, okay, well, if they're equal, then she could just decide to focus on the inward, focus on herself, and then just leave. There's nothing really God could do about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the rabbis, I think, they all snicker, because they know what they think it is. But, gosh, there's so, I should mention the City of God. This is another one of his important books. In this book, he's dealing with the problem that Rome is collapsing because of the Vandals. He's surrounded in Hippo by the Vandals, and the Romans don't have the forces or the wherewithal to chase them away. And so eventually Hippo is destroyed, except for his cathedral and his library, because he specifically asked, as he was dying, if they would make sure his library got saved, and apparently it was. So that's kind of amazing how that worked. But in this particular book, The City of God and The City of Men, he's responding to Romans who are complaining that the reason Rome is becoming so weak is because of Trump's, Christianity is causing the problem. Pardon?
Is it Freudian slip there?
I don't think Freud would agree. But in any case, Rome is collapsing on itself. And, there's lots of studies trying to figure out why that happened. Personally, I don't think Rome ever actually went away. I live in Eagle River, and across the highway from me, there is a flag that I consider to be the flag of the Roman Empire. It's the flag of the Vatican. And the Vatican is the continuation of the Roman Empire. The Pope sits on the throne, and the throne makes him the bridge between heaven and earth. And that is what the Pontius is a bridge, and the Pontius was the emperor. So Augustus Caesar was not only the emperor but also the high priest of Rome. Although one person in responding to the question, how did Christianity become the religion of the empire, said, well, because at the time it was the only religion. No. The pagan religion we certainly think of as religions. You're thinking in terms of the modern religions. Well, the Hindu religions were definitely prevalent then. The Buddha had followers, of course. That might have even impacted Plato. Who knows? But so, yes, we certainly think of as the pagan religions as religions. Pagano is a Latin word that means the country. So it seems like Christianity spread primarily in the cities first. And so the cities were Christianized, and those who lived in the rural communities were still practicing the pagan cults. And so they became known as pagans, right? Pagano, countryside. There's another word that's kind of fascinating, and that is Indian. When we think of the word Indian, and we think of that as Columbus, when Columbus discovered America, or the European discovery of America, and he met the natives there, and he referred to them as Indians. A lot of folks argue that clearly he was lost. He had no idea that he was not in India, and he called the natives that he met Indians. But the thing is, in Latin, the word Indian means native. So he was referring to them as natives, so it didn't mean that he hadn't realized, whoa, this is not. Actually, till his death, he thought he still had reached the Asian continent, the islands of the Asian continent. But, so he was lost. But at the same time, I don't think the word Indian meant that he thought he was calling them Indians because they were from India. In fact, the Indians were called natives by the Romans that knew of them because they were the natives of that area. Does that make sense?
Indus Valley.
Yeah, yeah. What else? But this book is an attempt to defend Christianity by arguing that what was wonderful about Rome all through its historical empire was because of the Romans being good Christian in nature, even though they were celebrating pagan religions. But where they were celebrating pagan religions in a way that was not Christian in nature, that's what caused Rome to deteriorate and fall. So does that make sense? The book is a defense that if you're a Christian, that doesn't make you a weak empire. It's all the other faults that Romans had that were not Christian that caused Rome to fall. Does that make sense? If we lived as a Christian society, we would be strong, we would be healthy, we would be good, etc. So it's the city of God is his kind of political utopian ideas about how wonderful a society would be if it was all Christian, whereas the city of men is what actually happened in Rome because of all the faults associated with the pagan cultures. That's just my quick summary of a thick book. If you ever go get it to read, it is good. It is interesting. There's an awful lot of interesting stuff in it, and it is right on the web. I mean, just like the Confessions, you could go up. I don't know how to negotiate this, but if you go up.
Trying to get back to like
Yeah, I was trying to get back
Not
to like the,
confessions.
oh well. Yeah, if you get to, no, that's just,
Look on the words confessions of St. Augustine in the top left. Or that.
if you just hit here, you get to that page, and then you can go to the early church fathers. And if you go to Augustine, you could go to, I look at some of the other titles, the City of God, on the Holy Trinity. How do you explain it? You know, it's a Trinity, and yet it's one God. What does that mean? This is one of the heresies of the day. Homilies are sermons on these different parts of the Gospels and so on. Exposition of the Psalms, etc. So, I mean, but you could go right to the source here. You could read it online, which way you would prefer to go. But notice the whole book is on there, etc. So it's all free, so I can't imagine asking you to spend $80 for a text that has, you know, a portion of that. The portion I would have picked would be the piece on time and the conversion story. There's a lot of really neat stuff in there. Questions? How am I doing? Next class, we're going to move on to more into the Middle Ages, and my main focus will be on St. Anselm and his ontological argument, which is probably the most famous argument there is. You've never heard of it, but it's still historically an argument that people still argue over today. And you will, I think, on Monday. So if you get a chance, I have somewhere, you know, there's lots of ways of finding it, but look up ontological argument. Ontos means the definition of thing, and logical, the study of. So if you look up ontological, you shall find it. Be safe. By the way, the first test is coming up, right? Everyone knows. I think we've covered all the main topics, so you feel very comfortable. Of course, there's no, as long as you send me 300 words per essay, that's an A. Right?
Do you want it in like 3 different documents, or do you care? Preferably?
Preferably 3 different ones, because I have all my responses. If you've got, you've got this, then I can just take my responsibility.
Okay.
And if you can mix them all up, I will do it.
The term paper,
Yes.
are you able to, on researching and discussing your thoughts or the works, does it have to be, do you have to discuss all the works equally, or can you focus on certain?
However you want to do it. Totally like interest you and so on. I want it to be the funnest paper you've ever done.
And also, is there any in that list that are close to like Kant's work? I read some of his thought, and that's the most I've enjoyed.
Who?
Kant.
Oh, Kant. John Rawls is considered a Kantian. I have Rawls on the list. Do you know who John Rawls is?
No, I didn't.
So, John Rawls is dead. He's not a.
Were you able to get your phone number?
What?
Were you able to find your phone number?
No.
Alright, come over here, I can show you how to make contacts.
But if you go into law, John Rawls,
So probably the easiest thing to do is
So-
just open your phone application.
he died in 2002. But
How do we do that?
It's gonna be
he
great.
is
It's
a
got
Kantian.
image of like a,
Oh, yeah.
This is
okay.
primarily a political
And go to the key
and
tab,
ethics
there's a tab
book.
on the bottom.
He was
Then you can
he
type
taught
my
law
number,
at
which is
Harvard.
907
And
230 9610.
so that would be a close to live
Should be it.
example of
Right.
a
And then you
Kantian
can hit
that
add
you could.
number, there's a button.
But you could do Kant, but try to pick someone who's a contemporary, because Kant, of course, died in
No, you want to.
1780.
Oh my God.
Type in my number.
Right.
It's fine
Like that.
now.
So,
So now I have your number.
so I mean, the
Like
kinds
it's
of
called.
issues that Kant
So,
dealt with
What you can do is go to your recent calls.
are nothing like
Okay?
well,
And then tap on
in
the
many
little
ways,
eye
they're nothing
next
like
to
what
the number.
you're going to be facing.
And
So,
then
so hopefully if
be
you
able to
pick
create new
someone who's
content
a little
by
bit
just
closer to
clicking
our
on
contemporary,
create new
you'll find it
content.
more
Send
interesting.
message, share
Oh, and then
contact.
that's my first question, so I
I
can,
guess I can just do share
I
contact.
can focus on
That's
whatever.
gonna try and send it to somebody.
Yeah,
else.
it's,
Okay,
you know,
add
I want you to
emergency
pick
contacts.
a
Add to
close to
favorites.
living
Add to
philosopher.
favorites.
Not all of the ones I have on the list are alive. C.S. Lewis is dead, as an example.
You're not on the-
Pope Benedict is dead now.
So I can
But,
see it.
and I can't edit anything on the
So I can
web
see what you're doing.
that I have
So
on that
go to your recent-
UAA website because the software is no longer supported. So I can't get on it. But, yeah, it's meant to be interesting to you and what, you know, what your concerns are and yet, you know, a contemporary philosopher that, I mean,
9-6.
fascinates you, you know,